It has grown organically through word of mouth over the last 3.5 years. I think it was like $860 to join the first one, and we had 37 people join. Since then, we had 48 in cohort 2, 57 in cohort 3, 76 in cohort 5, 102 in cohort 5. The cohort is now across 18 countries. Trust is the hottest commodity at the moment. We built credibility because we've been running meetups and experiences for a year. So basically, alumni hosts, they run in-person dinners and welcomes and celebrations and workshops throughout the 8 weeks to give people that in-person connection.
What do you do specifically to make the first 3 days a hell yeah experience?
We have a hard curriculum and a hidden curriculum. They'll tell you what they want, which are the hard skills, but what they actually need is the hidden curriculum. I want people to feel seen. I want people to feel like they belong. How the hell do you design for that? So let's have a personal matchmaking service where our cohort lead will introduce you to 3 other people within the first week of the program. And so in order to run a program for 102 people, we have 45 people behind the scene. In terms of the growth, the best growth strategy you could ever have. It's not the marketing, it's not the partnerships, it's not the social media, it's not the newsletters. In program 1, we supported a community manager at a co-working space. He has now sent 2 of his own team members through our program. We have 1 other person. We have 3 people who joined cohort 1 that have now come back 5 times. The biggest thing to think about when deciding tech tools is to remember it's not about the tech tool. It's actually about where your members have habits of checking and going.
Welcome to Painter Maps, where we interview operators of top community businesses so that you can replicate the best of what these community creators have already figured out. Today, I am thrilled to have Paz Pazarski with us. Paz is the co-founder at the Community Collective, a global community for community builders that started out of Australia. She started this community fairly recently after quitting her job in 2022 and a little bit before that with the free version. So today, hundreds of customers have taken her cohort-based program for community building. And this makes her the perfect creator to learn from if you want to learn how to build a community business. So welcome to the show, Paz.
Oh, it's so great to be here. I'm having a lovely day already.
I'd love to hear that. Now, I want to learn all about your community and how it got started. So before that, how would you describe your ICP at Community Collective, the people who are joining you in the cohorts?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's really great to be here, and I'm very excited to share more about the story. And so I guess, really the most unique thing about the Community Collective is probably that we started as a niche in Melbourne, Australia, for community builders in the startup space. So we really honed into a specific audience group, and it has grown organically through word of mouth over the last 3.5 years to now be an audience of over 12,500 and community of 700 people across 18 countries.
Wow, that is amazing. And you started off Australia. Like that is something I would not have thought of as the hub for community builders. You made it feel as if like Australia is a place to be if you're a community builder, honestly.
Australia is the place to be. It's amazing down under. We have incredible animals and surf and Vegemite, and it's a really beautiful country, really amazing
I'm
people
sure
and
it
quality
is.
of life.
I'm sure it is.
In a world with endless content, often AI generated, authentic connections with people who get it is huge. It might just be what your people need to get the outcomes they're looking for. We've created the tool to help you foster such connections on autopilot. Using curated connections, you can create matching programs that match members based on complementary skills, goals, and backgrounds. You can also use it to host a member directory that is designed to foster connections. The best part is it all works over email, so you can use it no matter which platform your community is on. Some of the top communities like Journalist World, Limited Supply, and Rails Foundation are already using it. So check it out at curatedconnections.io or go to the link in the show notes below. Now back to the show.
I want to double click on this. When you started out of Australia, was this just out of desire that okay, there should be something for community builders in my own country and where I live, or did you actually like see a business opportunity there, like from the beginning?
Yeah, let's go back to the beginning. And really, our story started in 2021 when we ran a meetup group for 17 people. And what led to that moment was prior to that, for about 6 years, I was working in the startup space. So I ran accelerator programs, I ran co working spaces, managed online founder communities and memberships, and also found myself at the intersection of community builder. So my role in those startup support organizations was basically to be a community manager. So I had various roles over the years in Melbourne in the startup scene. And it's also worth noting that there's an incredible organization called Australian Community Managers that has existed for decades now. That is really the cornerstone of training and moderation and defamation for a community manager. So that has existed and has done a lot of incredible support and research in the space. And so what we found at the time was that throw in a pandemic in 2020, and Melbourne was actually the second most lockdown city in the world. So we did hundreds of days of consecutive stage 4 lockdown, 5 kilometer radius, 6 p.m. curfew. You couldn't sit on a park bench when you went for a walk, could only be out an hour of a day. And a lot of people had these same strict restrictions, but it was the longevity and just the delays and just how long it went for in Melbourne. Argentina was the first most lockdown. I think it was Buenos Aires, had the longest in the world. And so it was very challenging. And of course, it was so challenging for everyone all around the world, no matter where they were. But what we found in Melbourne, there was that a lot of community builders in the startup space who were managing founder communities. We had really acute challenges and really distinct situations that we found ourselves in. So personally, we shut down a 3-story co-working space and started moving things online, as so many people did. And I did about 350 courtesy calls to all of these founders who had these crazy stories of either their business was booming and they were doing super well because they were a delivery service for a shopping center online, or they were shutting up shop and their shoe business was going under. And it was really heart-wrenching. And so I personally felt so overwhelmed of how do I support all these founders in our community when I'm just alone, also locked out at home, feeling very isolated. And so we started reaching out to lots of different people in community building roles in the startup space, and basically just emailed my network and I said, do you know anyone building community in the startup space? And I got emailed intro to about 50 other people and just started jumping on all these calls with community builders and just asked them, what are your challenges? What goals are you trying to achieve? And how can we support each other? Are you also really struggling? And what was uncovered at that time was just it was just really hard. And so we brought together 17 people in between the 4th and 5th Melbourne lockdowns when the world opened up for just a week in Melbourne, and we caught up at the Commons in Cremorne, had sushi and wine, took off our face mask and just breathed this fresh life into the room of honestly just sharing war stories and supporting each other. And at that time, I'd reached out to our 2 co-founders now, Jala, Alex, who was working at a university accelerator, and Melia Rayner, who was working at Blackbird Ventures, a VC here in Australia that backed Canva. And so our meetup went viral after that, and we just had an Airtable registration link basically being shared all across online for people to apply and get access to this meetup. We had lockdowns again, so we moved it online and just ran this free meetup community for about a year, just catching up on Zoom. We were borrowing the VC's Zoom account because our free plan maxed out, and we were just getting emails and LinkedIn messages left, right, and center for more support. They wanted coaching, mentoring, frameworks, all of these elements because we were bringing together community builders in the startup space in Melbourne. So it was super niche and really targeted about startup support and how can we build stronger founder communities as a time where the world is in crisis. And so, yeah, I quit my job in 2022 and fast forward today, and it is, grown into a bit of a beast and financially sustainable business.
I like this, and this is like such a good story. And I noticed that you mentioned you're quite focusing on building stronger founder communities, and not necessarily community builder communities, or was it both of them?
So anyone in the free meetup community had to be in the startup space. So a lot of us were managing communities of founders. We were running accelerators, incubators, co-working spaces, venture capital firm. They had portfolio companies. So we were all in this startup support world where basically we were at companies that existed to support founders to build scalable and strong businesses. And so we just honed in on this niche because that's where Jala, Melia, and I were all working. And it's also, I think that specificity really helped us in the beginning because I then met 20 other accelerator managers who are now working online. So it was just so amazing to have that conversation. It's like Spider-Man getting in the room with 20 other Spider-Mans. He's like, I feel so seen. So yeah, that was what happened.
Yeah, that's funny. And how did that result into? So this was a free meetup community running online, going viral. And when did you connect that? Okay, now this can be we can run a cohort-based program.
Yeah. So how it turned from a free meetup community to a cohort-based program. Basically, we got to 2022, so we'd be running the free meetup community for a year. Myself, Melia, and Jal all have full-time jobs, so we are just doing this on the side, and things were kind of opening up. I also moved down the surf coast where I live at the moment in Australia, and we were basically being bombarded. There was so much demand. People wanted the meetups to run weekly, and they wanted more support and just this element of coaching, and they had bigger questions. And yeah, it was just things were opening up, and now we were doing things back in person. There was a whole nother set of challenges. More people wanted to join. So it was extremely unsustainable to run it whilst working full time, which is a beautiful privilege and problem to have. We feel very, very fortunate. And I think because we struck a chord with such a niche group of people, we really wanted to do more support. So I spoke to Melia and Jala and I said, I'm thinking about going all in, registering this as a company so that we can have the foundation to actually deliver more value to these people. And they said, let's do it. But they're not going to quit their jobs, but they'll join the advisory board. And I was like, amazing. So Melia and Giles joined the advisory board and became the first advisors of the community collective. And I quit my full-time job, registered the CC as a company, basically put about $2,000 into it, just bootstrapped, to pay an accountant to register it as a company and also buy a website. And so then we spent 3 months interviewing all of, the hundreds of people in our free meetup community to really understand, again, what are your challenges, what are your goals, what support are you looking for? So we had a really clear idea of how can we actually support these people on a more deeper basis. For context, I'd run communities in person in co-working spaces. I ran 10 accelerator programs, so that's a time-bound 12-week program for startup founders. And then I also ran an ongoing monthly membership that was all year round. So I'd had a lot of taste in a lot of different models of community. And personally, I just loved the outcomes and the accountability that a time-bound program gave people. And it just felt like a really beautiful experience where hundreds of people come together for 8 weeks to have these transformational outcomes. So we basically gathered all the insights. I went and collaborated with a lot of learning designers from Chaos Pilot to Scandinavian School, which is basically learning design and experience design. And we built out a curriculum to solve the challenges, help people achieve those goals and gain the support that they needed. And I then just put out a post on LinkedIn asking everyone after this period, I said, hey, we've done some research thinking about launching a 7-week program, maybe in October, possibly online. Would anyone be interested? Pop your details in this link if you're keen. We had 100 people sign up in 24 hours. So that in itself was just, okay, all right, there's demand here. This is totally worth it. So then went away, designed and built the program, and then we launched applications. I think it was like $860 to join the first one, and we had 37 people join. And so that was just in itself phenomenal. We thought, okay, if we get 5, amazing. We'll run this pilot, test some things, but it was just wild. And since then, we had 48 in cohort 2, 57 in cohort 3, 76 in cohort 5, 102 in cohort 5. Blah, blah, blah. It's just wild. And so we've trained hundreds of community builders from companies such as Google and Canva and MYOB and Founders Factory Africa. And it's just been insane to now see just the compounding impact that this program has had. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, this growth is insane. I mean, like I've talked to a lot of community builders who run cohort-based courses, and story always goes like, the first cohort is when people are really excited. You launch this new thing, and you get a bunch of people signing up, but then it becomes more and more difficult after every cohort, and then the number, like the cohort size, also reduces because these audience that you have, they kind of saturate, and then you don't have like more to pull from. But in your case, it's the opposite. So I feel like now is the perfect time to do like a mini masterclass on how to grow a cohort-based community program. So on that note, my first question is, how did you fill your first cohort? You mentioned the first cohort had 37 people. And you mentioned you just sent out, you had this list of people and you basically told them that you're starting it. Is that all?
Yeah, so obviously the context that led up to the first program is that we'd been building a free meetup community for a year. So we had 500 people in the free meetup community, And then we went to the public with that post and said, thinking about this course. And then we had another 100 people register for that. So we had this pool of community builders who were highly interested, and basically just sent an email to those two lists saying, program's live, here's the website, this is how much it is, apply here. You have 2 weeks to make a decision. And put out some posts on social media. And that was really how we got the first 37. And I think, the key, no one wants to be the first, so you're like, oh, the first program, I'll let them run it, see how they go, and then I'll join the second one. So for people to say yes to something that never existed, join a Slack group with no one in it, that was a huge step for people to take. And so I think we'd built credibility because we'd been running meetups and experiences for a year. We'd been doing it in our job, and we brought on 12 speakers in the industry that were very well respected. So obviously in your first program, you don't have testimonials. You don't have referrals of past participants to help you get the 50, 100, next 1,000 people in a door. And so we looked at who do people buy from? What we're talking about here is trust. Trust is the hottest commodity at the moment. And without it, you can lose it in a day, just like that. But it takes years to build trust. And so people buy from people they trust. And we look to recommendations from people that we know and have had great rapport with. And so we didn't have any past alumni in this program to build trust. So we really looked to the speaker lineup to help add to that ability, which I think helped us in the early days. But really, we just got on the phones, started calling people who were in that EOI list, started asking, what challenges do you have? What goals are you trying to face? What support are you looking for? Those 3 questions have guided me through my entire career. And I ask our audience and community every 3 months those same questions to make sure that we are continuously up-leveling, refining, and hitting the mark.
So tell me more about these 3 questions again. What are the questions?
So constantly, the role of a community builder is not to make decisions on your own. That is, I think, a sure way of leading to failures. But to lead to success, you have to make decisions with your members. You can't build community for people. You have to build community with people. It is not about you. It's not about me. The Community Collective has nothing to do with me, Paz, as a human. It is all about the people that we're serving. And so if I have a role to play to serve these people, I need to understand what they're struggling with. So challenges. What challenges are you currently facing? Such a great question to understand the pain points. What is stopping people, keeping them up at night? What are they stressing about and not getting right and failing again and again? That is where a transformation can occur. Another transformation that can occur is in the goals. What do you want to achieve? I want to know the aspirations, the skills, the knowledge, the people they want to learn from so that we can adequately serve them. And then what support are they looking for? Because we asked that question because if they said, I don't need any support, I'm good, I'm in like 5 other cohort-based programs, I'm in this community, I've got a mentor, then how could I serve that person? They're already booked up and they're saturated. But if they come back and they say, oh my God, I don't have anyone to talk to. I have no idea where to go to look online. I'm overwhelmed. I listened to a podcast that was kind of helpful, but I don't really know where to get deeper. Boom. That is such a sure sign of how we can deliver value. That kind of, that's like landscape mapping, competitor analysis. That question is tapping into, does this person have capacity to be supported? Do they want to be supported? Where are they currently getting supported? So that is really key as well.
It's really insightful. And do you ask these questions like in an automated form or one-on-one?
Both. So if people apply for the program, we ask them their challenges and their goals. And then we ask them what they want to achieve in the program, which is similar to the support. The support question is really great before you build something. And then we meet every single person that applies for our program. So we've had over 400 people apply to the program, met every single one of them. Not me personally, either someone from my team as well. It's a big job. Yeah. And we have a 20-minute call with them and we dig deeper into those questions and then also ask other ones to really understand, one, if they are a good fit for the program and also if we are a good fit for the program. I'd hate to waste anyone's time. That would be such a disservice and we only accept people that are actively building community. So the current community cohort doesn't serve people who just want to get into community building, maybe land their first community job, or they want to launch a new community. We've made exceptions on the launching a new community if they have a really ripe audience and are ready to go. But for us to deeply serve this group, we have to be really strategic and conscious of making sure that everyone's at a similar stage, because you get a compounding effect of impact.
Love this. And wasn't the first cohort in person, like in Australia?
So the cohort has been 100% online since
Okay.
it existed, but it's
Okay.
hybrid. So we have alumni hosts in Brisbane, Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, and Lagos, Nigeria. Nigeria is actually the second largest country that our program is based in.
Wow.
There's a whole story to that. We can dive into it later.
Okay.
And so basically, alumni hosts, they run in-person dinners and welcomes and celebrations and workshops throughout the 8 weeks to give people that in-person connection. I mean, we're community builders. We love connecting in person. We want to build deep relationships. And so I think to ground any online experience, you have to pair it with in-person elements. The cohort is now across 18 countries, so it's really tough for us to run in real life elements across multiple cities. So we have a caveat as soon as we hit more than 8 members or alumni in one city, we will allocate an alumni host. And for anyone else, we've got a couple of people in London and San Francisco and Barcelona and Istanbul, Turkey. And so if we don't have any members or alumni in our network, we kind of look at, great, who's someone that you want to meet? Can we introduce you to anyone in your local area? And what does that look like if that person is really craving those kind of connections as well?
Interesting. So I love the concept of these alumni hosts and the limitation that you have that anytime you have the total number of people in a city cross this X number, we will allocate a dedicated alumni host to that city. That is a really interesting way of building community in a local setting as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to have method to the madness. We use so many frameworks and tactics. We're also teaching other people how to build community in that sense. So really trying to model what that looks like and give people different tastes of, oh yeah, this is how we run online workshops, on networking, or in-person dinners. This is a brunch on Sunday. So really trying to experiment and giving people access to those kinds of experiences. And as well, it's really hard if everyone is asking for in-person in their city. You've got to have a criterion to make it feasible and valuable.
I love this. So again, I'm gonna double click on this hybrid aspect of the community more and talk about it the perspective of the programming that you have throughout the cohort. So while your cohort is an 8-week program, right?
Yes.
And tell me what goes on during the 8 weeks, both online and in a hybrid setting. And I want to basically understand how you coordinate between the two, if you do anything to do that.
Yeah, definitely. So the whole program is built on a really core curriculum. So we have a hard curriculum and a hidden curriculum. And basically what we look at is the hard curriculum are what are the hard skills that people want to leave with? This is usually what people come to the community collective for. They go, I want to build a community strategy. I want to be a better public speaker. You know what? I'm overwhelmed with my operations and I need a more efficient way of doing things. And I feel really lonely and I need more connections with other community builders. So they are the hard skills and the hard curriculum that we design the whole experience around. So we look at those 4 key skills and then we'll program online and in-person experiences to always meet those 4 key skills. And then you have a hidden curriculum. This is people come for the content and they stay for the community. Community, common unity. How do you build common unity? Well, that is in the hidden curriculum. So the hidden curriculum is, how do we make sure that people feel heard? How do we make sure that people feel like they belong? How do we make people feel like we actually give a damn about what they're building? Because this work is bloody hard. How do we make people really feel seen and like this has been the best choice and decision of their entire life within the first 3 days that they join? That is where the hidden curriculum comes in. And that is the transformational experience that we want people to have as a result of going through 8 weeks.
Okay. Now I have to ask for everybody listening, because I'm sure everybody listening to it is curious, what is in this hidden curriculum? Like there's so much suspicion and so much curiosity around this now.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So in learning design, we basically do an exercise called vision backcasting. So vision backcasting is we look at, okay, what is the vision of the experience and how do we want people to feel at the end of that? So I go, great, these are the outcomes. I want people to leave with this hard curriculum, the 4 key skills, and I want people to leave with this hidden curriculum of how to feel. And so now I think the biggest missed opportunity in many courses is that we only focus on the hard skills and we don't do the hidden curriculum. So the hidden curriculum is basically program. So let's program the hard curriculum because I think this is easy to understand. So the hard curriculum are the 4 key skills. So let's have a couple workshops on how to build a community strategy. We'll do some online workshops on public speaking. We'll do something in Melbourne about how to facilitate, and we'll run some sessions on tech stack. So now we got our topics, got our key speakers, we got workshops, we got some hardcore curriculum where people are going to leave with some really tangible results of either being more clear or more confused, hopefully more clear. So then we look at the hidden curriculum and go, okay, well, I want people to feel seen. I want people to feel like they belong. How the hell do you design for that? Okay, well, let's look at everything else that's not in the schedule. What do we do? So let's have a personal matchmaking service where our cohort lead will introduce you to 3 other people within the first week of the program so that you now have this small, intimate group of people that you can rely on through the whole 8 weeks. These are your people to go to when you have questions, goals, you feel confused. And we are matchmaking and we'll get your preferences and we will curate this introduction for you. So now we've just built a mini community inside of a really large community because you can use experience stacking design to understand hidden curriculum. So experience stacking design is basically, we had 102 people in cohort number 5, which just finished up last week. And that's a big group of people. That could be overwhelming, but bigger is better because we scale the experience. So of course there are going to be these online workshops where everyone can join and everyone, the whole 100 group are there. But then we have these intimate sessions every Friday where you will only speak to 2 other people for 40 minutes and you'll go down these huge rabbit holes. And then every Thursday, just come with us and we'll work together. No talking. We're going to put tunes on. We're all going to work together. That just might be 4 other people. So you can do one-on-one coaching. Okay, you need a one-on-one experience. So now using experience stacking design where, yes, there's these big group experiences and then there are these intimate, irreplaceable moments to have so you feel seen and heard and like you belong. And so does that kind of make sense of how we think about that hidden curriculum? How do you make people feel something? That's really hard to design for. So you have to be intentional in your programming to make people experience that. And not everyone will experience that. And that not everything you do is going to work. And not everyone is going to leave feeling all of those amazing things. And that's okay. As long as you try. I think so many people don't even try. They just do the workshops and the content and that's it and expect everyone to connect. But if we are teaching people how to build community, we have to be doing so many different things in order to build community. So because then people can experience what that's like.
I like this. I think, yeah, a lot of, the platform Maven that runs cohort-based courses. So I feel like most of the creators or most of the courses over there could use some of your ideas about this hidden curriculum because I feel like they're all focused, like heavily focused on the hard skills. So it's just missing out on this opportunity for creating the space for belonging and making you feel seen and all of those softer things that make up a community.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because at the end of the day, people will tell you what they want, but it's up to you to deliver what they need. And they'll tell you what they want, which are the hard skills, but what they actually need is the hidden curriculum.
Mm. Yeah, that was really insightful. One more thing that you mentioned that I want to specifically ask about. So you mentioned you focus on how to make them feel like this was the best decision in the first 3 days. So that sounds really amazing. And I bet everybody wants to do that. What do you do specifically to make the first 3 days a hell yeah experience?
Yeah, definitely. So in order to run a program for 102 people, we have 45 people behind the scenes serving 102 people for 8 weeks.
Wow.
That's huge, you know.
Yeah.
Basically, it's very difficult to scale a community without jeopardizing the member experience. And so a really great way to do that, and I'll get to your question, but to really preface this answer, it's really key to talk about the optimal community number. So the optimal community number, this is also in cohort-based programs, you'll have an optimal number of people that will have a good experience in your program or in your community based on the amount of people you have serving them. So let's say there's one community manager running a program for 10 people. Those 10 people have a fantastic experience. Amazing. We've found that the optimal number to serve 10 people is with one community manager. Now, we want to scale that program to 50 people. Okay, cool. We scaled it to 50 people. We're now going to need 5 people to serve that 50 people to make sure they all have an optimal experience. Okay, we want 100 and so on and so forth. You know, it doesn't have to be 5 full-time community managers. We're talking about 5 people. What mentors, coaches, you know, who are the people that are supporting the participants and on what level? And so we now have 45 people that serve 102. That's nearly a 1-to-2 ratio. You know, that's a lot. And so if we grew to 150, we would need 58 people to help serve. And so in the first 3 days, we have 45 people at the helms ready to welcome, serve, answer questions to every single person that joins. And so we make sure that we starve off the access to anything online, in person, the portal, Slack, until one day before the program and everyone gets access all at once. So then it feels like this overwhelming, beautiful waterfall of all these people rushing in and wow, hey, oh yeah, you're here. Oh, Tanya's here. Oh, Jeanette's here. And so we also have 150 alumni waiting inside online. So we're gathering all of these people. And so what that might look like, we would send an invitation to our Slack guidelines and a how-to guide and a video walkthrough. And once they've watched that, they'll get access to our Slack. And then the first we use Common Room for all of our automations. They'll get a personal message from me within the first 10 minutes. They'll get an instant DM from the Community Collective admin Slack bot, which basically welcomes that person and encourages them to post in our intros channel. And then once they post in our intros channel, we have 5 alumni mentors monitoring that intros channel to then welcome that person and then introduce that person to 5 other people that they would usually get along with based on their interests. So within the first 5 minutes, actually, of joining this, you have been welcomed by, you know, someone who interviewed you and accepted you into the program. You had the Community Collective admin bot. Okay, that feels informative. And now you've had all these alumni mentors welcome you, members of the community and alumni, and you've now been introduced to 5 other people. And of course, some people might look at that and go, wow, that feels overwhelming. But what is the opposite? What is the opposite? You join, you hear from no one, you post something and no one replies. You don't feel seen. You feel like you could just get swept under the rug and that no one noticed you joined. And no one would notice if you left. So that is really, really key.
I like this. I like this. I like this a lot. I'm getting so many ideas. I'm like kind of reflecting on my past community building experiences and thinking about how I could have made them better for the members if I had applied this framework there and making it. Yeah, I like the analogy that you use of making it not feel like overwhelming, but it's like a waterfall of information and people coming at you at once, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, people don't want to be onboarded. They want to be welcomed.
Yeah, yeah, love this. Okay, I think I'm getting the idea of the vibe here and the reason why it's been so successful as a community. But let's talk about the numbers and specifically how have you been at a steady growth pace? So you mentioned like at the beginning you've been consistently growing the cohort size. So cohort 1 was 36 and then 51, 62, 71, and the latest one has I think 102, right?
102.
So apart from just building and delivering like a great community experience, what else are you doing in order to grow the program?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. I think I remember launching the first program thinking, if no one joins, this has been a great learning experience and and that's fine. That's totally fine. And maybe if a couple people join, they have a great experience, and then we'll probably have to wrap up, and I'll have to go get a full-time job. And 2.5 years on, and 5 programs later, we go, okay, all right, this is like really here to stay. And I still get nervous every time we open our doors. I still have the anxiety. What if no one joins? What if we only get one person? But you know what? Even if the community collective fell over tomorrow, which I hope it doesn't, this has just been so successful, and I feel so privileged and yeah, proud to be able to do this kind of work. And so in terms of the growth, the best growth strategy you could ever have is to make sure that you are delivering an unforgettable experience to every single individual that joins. It's not the marketing, it's not the partnerships, it's not the social media, it's not the ads, it's not the LinkedIn posts, it's not the newsletters, it's not the ADMs. Your number one priority is any single person that says yes to join your program or community. You have to over deliver on value, surprise and delight, help them achieve those goals, throw down those barriers of those challenges, and give them that undeniable support that they deserve. If you do that, you're going to be successful. In program 1, we supported a community manager at a co-working space, and he has now sent 2 of his own team members through our program. We have one other person. We have 3 people who joined cohort 1 that have now come back 5 times. They've come back to
Wow.
every single program. And so this, I think, is probably the wildest thing about the program that we never expected, was that we ran that program for 36 people, and that is all we did. And we really tried to just deliver value. And at the end, everyone graduates, and their Slack and portal access wraps up, and then we clean up the space, and then we get ready to onboard and welcome everyone else. What we didn't realize is that those 36 people turn around and they say, whoa, 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 we don't want to leave. What do you mean our access ends? What are you talking about? We want to stay. And we looked around and we go, oh, we don't have anything for you. I mean, we just ran this program and now it's done. So what do you want? And so we just extended everyone's access. We just say, oh, this is cool. This is cool. All right. So we extended everyone's access for 6 months. We just said, okay, if for free, you can stay. Tell us why you don't want to leave. What's up? And then the same thing happened with cohort 2. They didn't want to leave. No one graduated. No one left. And we were looking around just going, wow, we've got all these people. And we asked them, what do you want? And they said, we want more support. We want to stay connected with everyone. We said, okay, well, we're only running this program so we can give you additional program access, but you'll never pay full price again. And we've had people come back to our program 5 times, every single program. That's the same as me. We've got this running tally in the community of who's going to outrun the longest and do the most programs. And, we've had people who've come back 4 times, 3 times, 2 times. And it's so funny because everyone goes, why would you do a course again? Why the hell would you go through a program twice? I asked the exact same question to all our members, but it's so funny because they gave us this analogy and they said, you know what? Have you ever been I'd love to ask you a question. Have you ever gone to a conference twice?
Yeah.
Ever been back 2 years in a row or read a book twice? What's been your experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I read a book multiple times if I really like it. Because it's a different experience every time I read it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same book though. Why do you read it again?
Because I'm a different person every time I read it.
Exactly. And the thing with the conference is, I've been back to South by Southwest in Sydney 2 years in a row. It's the same conference, but there's new speakers, new motivation, new people. I get inspired. It's this time-bound experience where I don't work and I just go to learn, absorb, build my network. And then I leave feeling inspired and motivated. So the Community Collective, we will never run a membership. We only run a programship. And what that means is that our alumni keep coming back again and again and again because we've offered that. And so that, I think, has really accompanied the growth because people haven't just said, hey, I had a really good time at this cohort, you should do it. They say, hey, I've done this cohort, I'm going to do it 5 more times, you should come with me. So that has just been wild. And after, the 3rd cohort, our members kept coming back and they said, hey, we don't want to keep paying to come back every time. Can you just build a lifetime membership, so a lifetime programship? So we then offered a lifetime offer, and now we have 45 people on a lifetime offer just to keep getting access to our program. So it's just, yeah, it's been wild. But it's also the biggest challenge that we've never expected because we have to evolve the program every single time. Yeah, of course we have different speakers, but I will never use the same slides twice. And that's really hard to do when you're running the program and you have 60 new people, but you have 40 people who have done it 5 times. Like that is the biggest challenge, to just constantly make us evolve. So, we've just been trying to reach new heights. We had Seth Godin come in and speak in the last cohort, which is a phenomenal, phenomenal human being. Definitely go read his book, Tribes. Also read his new book, This Is Strategy. And so alumni come back because they just go, wow, I want to learn from Seth now, and so it's just built this really wild energy of just this crew who just keep showing up twice a year. And then the rest of the year, the 10 months of the year, we're just out doing the job, doing the thing, working full time, implementing what we learned. And then we start to miss each other and we go, oh, I miss you and I miss learning and I need some inspiration again. Oh, there's another cohort. All right, I'm back. So yeah, I don't think we could have ever planned for it. And yeah, it's just been the best thing.
I love that. I love this so much. So you run 2 cohorts a year, is that right?
Yes, March, September.
Okay. And what are you doing the rest of the time? Planning for them?
I'm just on holiday. I'm just at the beach riding my bike. No, I wish. I do take 2 months off a year, and then I take another 2 months traveling every year. So I have 4 months of downtime. And so we've built the Community Collective into a seasonal company. And what happens is, we'll run the program March and September. And they're 8 weeks. So we have 2 months of programming, but it takes 10 weeks to stand up a program. So that's another 2.5 months for each program. So it's, substantial amount of time to prep, curate that hard curriculum, the hidden curriculum. We've got to change every time. We've got 50 alumni coming back. We've got to get better speakers, new speakers, and coordinate all the alumni hosts, mentors, coaches, mentor. There's so many multifaceted elements to this that it takes a lot of time to set up. So when the program is off, we are designing the next program. But at the Community Collective, we also offer coaching, recruitment, and partnerships. So that keeps us busy all year round too.
I love this. Okay, I love this. I bet everybody listening would love to take some inspiration and get into your lifestyle. You work on what you really really love very intensely for 3-4 months time, and then you have a break, like a 2 month break, and then you come back, and then there's an intense period, and then there's a break a bit. Like this way of working is like really unique, I feel. And
Yeah, I heard Don Price, who's from Atlassian, he said, for every 1 minute you spend on hustle, you have to spend a minute on self-care. That's really hard to do these days. A lot of us work around the clock if we're working from home, the laptop, the boundaries, we're running events at night. Okay, now it's Christmas and there are so many demanding elements and it's really tough to juggle it all. We're not just juggling full-time work. We have family, friends, caring responsibilities, even just our own interests. I also run a music business and I write relaxation music for film and meditation. And so
that's why your voice is so beautiful.
That's why I've got the microphone. It's actually just my gig gear. And I think that we're on delivering for 4 months of the year. We run 3 workshops a week when a program is on, 75 minutes each. It's for every 75 minutes that you're delivering, that's at least an extra 2 hours of prep. When we're on, we're on. And I'm not saying we're working around the clock, excruciating and silly hours, but 4 months of delivery, we need 4 months of downtime. And I'm not just saying go on a beach, disconnect from the world for 4 months, but just where we're not front facing. So, I know that when I'm running a program, I'm not doing much else. I'm just running that program. And then when the program is off, it is time for us to just work on the business. We do retros, I've got about 10 calls this week with all the members who just wrapped up our last program to ask them how it went. I'm just spending time now just understanding what worked well, what didn't, what can we do to constantly evolve it. And that is needed for a lot of thought. But also running 2 programs a year, create scarcity. I think that's a really great community building tactic that more people should leverage. I find when you create scarcity, it's only if you don't apply now, you got to wait 8 months.
Mhm.
It's so far away. We had someone who missed out, and on the 1st of September, they said, "Can I join cohort 5?" But we'd already closed applications. We'd onboarded, we hit the max amount of people. And, we had to say no to 50 people from the last program. And we said, "We're so sorry. I got to join March next year." That's actually kind of frustrating. People go,
Yeah.
"Paz, that's annoying." And I'm like, I know. But if we're going to deliver a really good experience, our team needs time to prep and deliver it. But also, it creates this scarcity. We just hit 780 people on the wait list to hear about the next program, and
Wow.
just it creates this wild energy that I don't think we realize as well. When people know that we email them saying our door is open, they know that it's going to close in 2 weeks and it's not going to open for another really long time. So I think that has, yeah, been an interesting side effect.
Got this. Okay. Yeah. You're doing like a lot to make the score like what it is. I mean, yeah, I'm really happy that we're on this interview right now because this is such an interesting learning experience as a community creator.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Okay, let's talk about tools. So your community, it's on Slack. You mentioned that. Why Slack?
Yeah, so the biggest thing to think about when deciding tech tools is to remember it's not about the tech tool at all. You should just throw that out the window. And I say that because it's actually about where your members have habits of checking and going and what they are using. It's not about me and what I like to use, it's about them. So in the early days, we went out to all of our members and we asked them, what tech tools are you using? What are you checking every day? What are you enjoying? What are you hating? And we gave them about 5 different options of tech tools that were realistic for us to use. Obviously, if someone's using this tech tool that you never heard of and it's $5 million, obviously that's going to be really hard to deliver on. So, got to set parameters. But we basically asked them, gave them about 5 different options, and then everyone voted, and Slack was the winner by a mile. And so we signed up to Slack. We've been using a free Slack account this whole time. And then we also built, in the first program, obviously a big test, massive risk. I'd quit my job. We weren't sure if this thing was going to have legs or not. And so we wanted to look at spending the least amount of money possible to really focus on understanding the experience and not getting swept up in building and designing all of the tech stack and the foundations and branding and all of that jazz. So we just wanted to focus on delivering a really good experience, having a good enough tech stack. And so we built on Luma communities, Lou.ma. They don't offer communities anymore. They've just honed into event registration experiences. And so they were the first 2 main tools that we used. And then of course, email, calendar invites. And then
So
we looked at, oh yeah, you go.
yeah, sorry to interrupt, but like what part of Luma communities did you use?
So Luma had a free product called Luma Communities, which no longer exists, but you could build out this community space. So you could have members, a member directory, a resource library, a global map. You could upload recordings. You could register for all the events. It was actually great. I was really sad when they got rid of it, but I understand the ruthless prioritization from the founder, which I respect. And then that forced us to then look at, yeah, so after running the first program, we thought, all right, okay, this program's, gone pretty well. That is a good enough validation to look at a proper product. And also Luma was closing, so that forced us to migrate. And so then we looked at a lot of different products around your LMS, Circle, Mighty Networks, Disco.co, looked at Discourse and Hivebrite and all of that jazz, Notion. And then we found that Disco.co was a great use case for us for running a cohort-based program. I think Mighty Networks and Circle are amazing for ongoing memberships and always on type experiences. And Discourse is amazing for really large brands such as Asana and OpenAI. And for us, we found that time bound experience on Disco was strong. So yeah, we built on Disco and we've been there ever since. Very, very happy.
I love this. And so how you're still talking on Slack, but you're using Discord to host everything else about the community. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. When I think about tech tools, I think about the habits that people have. So obviously trying to build habits around checking the tech. I think it's really hard just to have a custom built member portal when no one has a habit of checking. It's really hard to get people on there. It's really hard to get engagement. So we use a combination of email, Slack, and Disco. So Slack is obviously for all the communication and the connection and catching up with people, introductions. We also use intros.ai, which I love. They have a Slack integration to connect people that was similar to Coffee Roulette and Donuts. And obviously then host all of our content because Slack's disappearing messages can't save anything. So obviously we want to host that as like on a timeless resource.
Okay, so you're able to do that on Discord, like host all the previous
Yeah.
messages.
Yeah.
Got it, got it. Okay, this is fascinating. All right, really interesting. I've looked at Disco before, but I didn't know there was such a strong community, like acceptance. Like you're basically the first person I'm interviewing who's using Disco.
Oh, I love them. They're like an LMS combined community platform. They're really good.
Nice. Okay. All right. We'll be having links to all of this in the show notes. But okay, apart from Disco and Slack, what else is on your tech stack?
Yeah, we use Airtable for forms, Canva for design, Clipchamp for video editing, and probably about 15 other tools that I could go on and on about. But probably my favorite one at the moment is Butter. So we use Butter for all of our online workshops, which are great for engagement.
Mhm. Okay, so this brings me like is an interesting this is just an interesting question in mind. So you mentioned that you want to use the tools which your members are already using and where your members already are, and Slack is definitely one of them. But then Butter and even Discord, they're not something that your members have probably used before. So what's the logic behind this?
Yeah, definitely. So using Butter, even if people don't have habits of using Butter, that is the only way to join our online workshop. So that's fine because that's the link in the calendar invite. And so you're going to join Butter to get access to the online workshops. So that is fine. But Butter is incredible. They have integrated so many amazing features. So before I used Butter, I used Zoom. And I would use Zoom, but I'd use Session Labs to create an agenda. I'd use Mentimeter to do a check-in poll. I'd then use YouTube to play a song and Spotify to play some music. I'd share my screen onto the Google Slides that I made. And I'm also connecting Otter.ai to take an AI summary notes. And I've got a Google Doc on the other side of my screen to make sure I know what I'm saying and how the event's running. That's five other, so many other tools just to run one Zoom session. And Zoom is amazing. Don't get me wrong. They have a phenomenal tool, really robust. Amazing, amazing functionality for scale. You could put 1,000 people on Zoom and the experience would just be amazing. So Zoom is fantastic, but integrates all of those tools into the back end. So I don't use any of those other tools now, but it creates AI summaries, a transcript automatically in the recording that gives GIFs at the end of the sessions. There's soundboards, emojis. I can use a cue or ask a question or have a comment. There's private notes. There are so many incredible functionalities in Butter now that as a facilitator, all I have when I run an event is the one Butter screen. There's inbuilt agendas that only I can see. And I can see the connection of your Wi-Fi. You can draw on the screen and start being an artist if you'd like. There's so many incredible functionalities now that I think meet people where they're at. And it's just a new experience.
This. So the second last question is let's talk about your team. You mentioned you have 45 people serving 102 members. Not all of them are full time working with you. So can you give me a breakdown of who these people are?
Yeah, of course. So our team basically, so in that 45 people, so we have mentors, we have alumni hosts, we have alumni editors, we have coaches, and then we have our team, and then we have ambassadors. So that whole multifunctional group of people are basically either members of the community that are coming back with member roles or on our team. So on our actual team, there's 4 of us at the moment. And so basically we work all around the year, whereas coaches, mentors, and everyone in between only show up when the program's running. And then we do all of that together.
Got it. Okay, and how do you recruit all of these people? Like, do you have, you mentioned a lot of them are alumni. So you probably able to, yeah, get your most engaged alumni into the program?
Yeah, it was actually alumni that came up with all of these roles. So
Wow.
at the end of the first program, we had a lot of people in Melbourne and Sydney put their hand ups and said, hey, I'm happy to run some dinners. I'd love to connect some people. I'd love to get to know some people. Can you give us like an inside scoop of what's your playbook and running these and your event briefs and can you teach me what you do behind the scenes and I'll help you host them. We thought, wow, that's really beautiful. Of course. So we allocated alumni hosts in Sydney and Melbourne as the first two locations, and then equipped them with obviously like a title, that kind of credibility. We gave them playbooks and we jump on kickoff calls together and really support these people to run really great events. And that's all they do. So they run two dinners and we help with all of the operations in the back end. And basically, after two people came alumni hosts, we then had other people kind of putting up their hand. They go, I want to do Perth and Brisbane, and what about Lagos, Nigeria? And so then I kind of popcorned from that, where I think members were craving the in-person connection in other locations that we weren't serving or allocating hosts. So they, yeah, were asking us if they needed help, which is beautiful. And then now we have an expression of interest for anyone interested. So we've got, I think, about 42 people who want to be a host or a mentor, but there's only a certain amount of roles, and current hosts have priority to renew. And so, yeah, the Sydney spot hasn't even opened in the last 2 years because we've had the same people, which have been really beautiful. And then in terms of ambassadors, yeah, we've got a wait list as well. And we basically open applications twice a year. And then coaches we pick, really want to make sure we're feeling the need at the time and understanding what are the gaps that our members have, what are the questions they're asking, and then who would be really well positioned to serve those people, and so on and so forth.
Love this. And just to wrap up on something that you mentioned earlier, which is about the story of how Nigeria became your second largest city. What's the
Oh,
story
yeah.
there?
Yeah. So in cohort one, we invited a speaker from Nigeria. So Jefta Abdu, incredible person. We were on a panel together at CMX Summit Online. And I love his perspective about building DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion within communities. And so we invited him to come and speak in the first program. And we didn't realize how freaking famous he is over in Nigeria. He just was was posting about it, and all these people started applying, and it was so beautiful. And I think we have over 200 people on the wait list who are from Nigeria, and I get LinkedIn DMs all the time. And then now we've had so many people, in Nigeria, be in the program itself, that now they talk about it with other people. So then that kind of network effect, that flywheel has been built that way. But the average salary for a community manager in Nigeria is about 1,200 Australian a year. Our program is $2,400 per person. So, that would be 2 years of someone's salary. That is just inhumane. And we would never ask someone to pay that much on such a discrepancy. Obviously, it's so different. They come from a much different world that I still have so much to learn from them and from their experiences. And so we built a scholarship program. And in the first cohort, yeah, we built a scholarship program. We were just funding scholarships out of our own pockets. And yeah, we've funded so many scholarships to not just people living in Africa, but also female founders, people who just experience financial hardship. And so that has been, yeah, just a really beautiful way to support people who might not be in the same position to financially access the education that they deserve.
That's a really nice thing. Love this. All right, Paz, one final question for the interview. What's the thing that kept you up most nights when you were building your community, just starting out? And this is like corollary on what should the creators listening to this podcast spend most of their nights thinking about?
Yeah, I think I just had way too much on my plate in the early days. We just didn't really anticipate the demand and just how hard it would be to get something off the ground. I mean, building a course from scratch is so much time. Just building all the processes, out of thin air, and building the plane whilst flying it. And, I remember when I'd quit my job, we designed the first program. And then I was also working a couple other jobs on the side. I was playing music gigs on the weekends. I was also launching an album the same month. I was so silly. I just didn't anticipate how much time and energy and just like brain capacity it would require. So I was up at night just thinking, how am I going to fulfill all of my commitments and where can I make space in my life? Because I just fully overcommitted myself. So if you're listening and you've noticed signs that you're, yeah, not feeling yourself, you're getting irritated, your phone beeps and you're frustrated, you feel overwhelmed, you're constantly looking at your calendar trying to make space. I like to think about the analogy in a prison or a palace. If you currently feel as if you're in a prison, you're chained to it, you're at the mercy, it's kind of running you, you don't feel like you have much time off or time for yourself, then you need to get into the palace. So the palace is, wow, you've built this incredible palace, the community, the program, the business, whatever it might be, this your life, and you get to sit on the lawn. There are people helping you, and you're just boozing around. There's not a care in the world, and you have time to show it where you're needed. And so, are you in a prison or a palace right now? Like every decision we've made have led us to this moment. Of course, there are external factors at play, but I have been in the prison multiple times, and to get out of the prison, this is the key. This is the key. Do you want to know the key? Do you want to
Yeah.
know the key? Okay. The key to get out of the prison is to play the opposite game. So whenever you are entitled and trusted to make a decision, you think about what your previous self would have made the decision. So you might have just been asked to speak at a conference in a different state. Previous, you might have said, yes, oh my God, yes, I'd love to do that. That'd be amazing. But you're in the prison right now and you need to prioritize more self-care. So maybe politely say no and see if you can do it next year so you can get into the palace mode. So I've been playing the opposite game on and off for decades, and it's a continuum. You're never going to be in the palace 24/7. You're hopefully never going to be in the prison 24/7, but the plan is to spend more time in the prison where you feel energetically filled so you have enough in your cup to fill up others.
Mhm. I love this. Wow. What a beautiful analogy and a great note to end on. This has been fantastic talking with you, as I've learned so much from you. I'm sure that everybody listening would really, really find your conversation and your insights helpful. So thank you so much once again for joining us on this interview.
Oh, thank you so much. And just remember, everyone is trying their best, and that's all we can ever ask for.